This is FiiO's first ever USB DAC. This is the FiiO KA3, and it is, like I said, their first dongle DAC, and it comes with dual headphone outputs, a 3.5mm single-ended and a balanced 4.4mm single-ended. Let's get to it. Right, so here is the box, and like the, the FiiO earphone that I reviewed recently, the FD3 was it? It's got this kind of a 3D holographic image on the front. The box this time is plastic, which is unusual. We don't see that often nowadays. They're usually cardboard. But that's irrelevant. What you get inside, you get, of course, the KA3 DAC. That's it there. You get this data cable, USB Type-C to Type-C, and you get a USB Type-C to Type-A adapter in there as well. But here is the KA3. Let's come in for a closer look, and there it is. Being just a dongle DAC device, it is pretty simple. It does have this detachable cable, which is cool, just in case the original one gets damaged or you want to replace it. And here's the unit itself. It's an all-metal construction. It's got a pretty nice look to it. Gold highlights on the end there look pretty sweet. So that's the USB Type-C port. On this end, you've got your 3.5mm single-ended jack and your 4.4mm balance jack. And that's about it, except for this RGB LED on the front, which lights up in various colors depending on the sample rate of the current playback file being played back. So that's it. But it feels really nice. It looks pretty sweet as well. It is fairly lightweight. Let me tell you about the internals real quick. As far as the DAC chip inside the KA3, you've got a Sabre ES9038Q2M. Now that is a flagship mobile DAC chip. It's very powerful, but at the same time it's very power efficient, so it won't draw too much power from your smartphone. Obviously it doesn't have its own internal battery. Now the price, I've seen it between $79 and $89, so it's firmly under the $100 mark. And when it comes to power output, the 4.4mm balanced out is insane. It does 240 milliwatts from the balanced output. That will drive pretty much anything. Look, if you want to be real pedantic, pain in the bitch, you can point out some headphones that it could struggle to drive, but for the most part, it's going to drive everything you throw at it, no problems at all. You just got to be realistic about it, you know what I'm saying? And from the single-ended 3.5mm output, it does 130 milliwatts, which is still quite respectable, and that's still going to be plenty enough for your most regular IEMs and efficient headphones as well. So let's move on to how the KA3 sounds now, and my first impressions are of it's fairly transparent and it's a neutral sound. It doesn't add any embellishment or coloration to the sound at all. And starting with the bass, so you get this nice clean neutral bass. It is punchy and fast and tight, but it might not be have the best sub-bass extension of all the sort of dongle DACs out there. For example, the E44 here I think is a little bit more beefier in the bass department, whereas this one is more neutral, but at the same time it has very great definition and speed. And the mid-range, well, the mid-range on the KA3 is pretty special actually. It's very resolving. The resolution in the mid-range on this DAC is just fantastic, and that maybe have something to do with the neutrality of the bass. It doesn't come across and add any coloration or whatever, but the mid-range is, wow, the instrument separation is so good. Like every sound within the music has its own little space in the stage, and it's got a very black background, and the air between instruments is very clean, so it really creates this kind of holographic 3D space where it feels like you're really immersed in the music. It feels like you're sort of walking through the middle of a live performance in some cases. So really nice soundstage on it. I'll talk more about the stage in a minute, but for the mid-range, it's got nice forward vocals. It's not a lean or a dry mid-range at all. It's got a nice little bit of warmth to it. but it doesn't sound colored. I mean, when I say warmth, I mean it just sounds smooth. It doesn't sound analytical. It doesn't sound dry or boring. It's very nice. It's a very rich mid-range, but a very clean one. And then finally the treble. Treble again is neutral. I don't find it to be boosted or subdued in either way. It's just comes as it is, and it's crisp and it's detailed. It's precise, but it's not a bright treble. Of course, if you plug it into a bright headphone or a bright earphone, then the treble will be bright. But from the noise from the sound, I should say, from the DAC itself is just neutral. It's not a bright sounding DAC to my ears at all. It's just transparent and very clear. Now going back to that soundstage real quick, and it doesn't have the widest soundstage, but it's got fantastic depth going forward, and within that forward depth it does layers really well. So you have your vocals, for example, in the center image. You might be able to hear an electric guitar off to the back left of the vocals. You might hear some percussion over to the back right, for example. It's not just a wall of sound, it's very separate. It's got these different layers within the depth, and that's fantastic. It's a really great experience, especially when paired with a really good headphone or earphone. Just gives you a really nice overall experience. It's very immersive. But overall, it pretty much sounds as I expected. I mean, I tried to come into the review leaving any bias behind, but I have my past experience with FiiO tells me or makes me expect that the build quality will be very good and the sound will be very good as well, and both of those things are true. So the little FiiO KA3 is a wonderful little dongle DAC. Now let's do a quick comparison with the Tempotec Sonata E44. I'm not going to do comparisons with any other dongle DACs because I've got heaps, and if I went down that rabbit hole we'd be here all day and you'd get bored and I'd get bored. So I'm just going to do this one specifically because it's one of the other few sub 100 dongle DACs with a 4.4mm output. Now obviously the E44 only has a single headphone output, whereas the FiiO has got an additional 3.5 single-ended one. And if you're someone like me who's got heaps of IEMs and headphones with different terminations, this is a really very handy thing to have, because I switch stuff all the time. If I only had a few things that specifically use the 4.4, I'd be happy to use the Sonata. And but for the most part, I would definitely find more versatility in the KA3. The other thing that I like about the KA3 is it's only got one sort of fixed, well, it's not even fixed, it is detachable. So if this cable does get damaged, you can replace it with another one. But the E44 here has got fixed cable on both ends, so you can't take this one out, which is a little bit unfortunate, because if you've got these hanging off your phone, for example, they're both a bit clunky, but this one's slightly more so. The one major physical advantage of the E44 obviously is its onboard volume controls. Really convenient feature, and I love that. Whereas the FiiO has got the RGB LED, which frankly is more of a gimmick than anything. Like, to be fair, I guess, if you wanted to make sure that your foobar was outputting DSD or whatever, you could check the light to make sure that way. But apart from that, it doesn't really have any benefits. So it's more of a gimmick thing, but it's nice to have nonetheless. I'm not begrudging it in any way. But in terms of the sound now, like I mentioned, the E44 has got a slightly fuller bass to it. A little bit more sub-bass extension. So if you're a bass head or you listen to a lot of music that depends on those low sub-bass notes, the E44 may suit you better. In terms of the mid-range, fairly similar, both pretty neutral in terms of the mid-range, although the E44 has got a slight boost a very slight boost in the upper treble, the upper mid-range and the lower treble, whereas the KA3 is pretty much just neutral and more linear. I find the KA3 to be slightly more resolving in the mid-range, and as far as treble goes, I think the upper treble of the E44 is a little bit more subdued, whereas the upper treble on the KA3 is more in line with its lower treble, which is to say it's more even across the board. Now in terms of Soundstage, I think the E44 here just slightly wider, not by much, but just slightly wider, but it doesn't have as much depth in the Soundstage. The KA3 obviously is a little bit narrower, but it does have that fantastic depth and amazing holographic Soundstage. Now I'm not saying the Tempotec doesn't have a good Soundstage, it definitely does. They just do things in a slightly different manner. Now if you have the E44 already, I would say it's not worthwhile upgrading or side grading to the KA3 unless you're like me and you think you would find a lot of value in the 3.5mm jack. Then obviously this is a great solution. However, if you listen primarily to 4.4mm stuff, then the Tempotec is still a great DAC. In terms of audio quality, they're very, very close. They just do some things slightly different than the other, so there's really not any definitive winner as far as audio quality goes. It just depends what your preferences are. One other thing to note is that if you have the E44 or you have very demanding headphones and you think you need more power, then the KA3's output power is it's gonna do it for you. 240 milliwatts from the balanced out here versus, what was it? Oh, I can't remember. It's significantly lower for the E44. I'll put the number up here. So yeah, that's it, guys. All right, that is the FiiO KA3. As I expected it would be, it's a great little device. First DAC, dongle DAC from FiiO, and yeah, it just happens to be a great one. But that's it for this video, guys. If you found any value in this video, give it a thumbs up, Parfam audiophile style. And if you're new to the channel and want to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That really helps out the channel. And until next time, see you later.